Hello everybody, it is I, Captain Oblivious Mist, and today we're going to be taking a look at the complete history of the RMMV Oceanic. This ship was a ship planned for the White Star Line, but unfortunately, due to an economical crisis, she was never completed, and she was doomed from the start. But nonetheless, she was quite interesting. So, let's take a look at her. The 1920s, a time with flappers and speakeasies. Don't you just love 'em? Well, I hope White Star did, as they had their beloved trio of ships. Admittedly, they were a ragtag group, but they were still pretty impressive, consisting of the then largest ship in the world, RMS Majestic, sister ship of the Titanic, Olympic, and the German liner Homeric. The Homeric was quite small compared to the other two ships in the trio, and while she was beloved by her passengers, the White Star Line thought it was time for a change, and so they got to work at planning out a replacement.
Talks about a replacement for the Homeric begun in the public eye in August of 1926. And the new ship was announced by the press. She was to be called Oceanic, the third ship to bear that name. The second ship that had that name, which I've done a video on, grounded in 1914 and ended up being one of the very first ships lost in World War I. But back to the third Oceanic. As back then she was going to have a similar profile to the Olympic class, but unfortunately during this time the International Mercantile Marine Company began to sell its non-American companies, including the White Star Line, which probably isn't a very good thing when you're planning to build the biggest ship in the world up to that point. She wasn't planned to serve the North Atlantic route alone, and in fact had a fleetmate planned. Her fleetmate was going to be more economical and smaller, and her name was going to be Britannic, the third ship to bear that name, and construction begun on her on the 14th of April 1927. But back to the Oceanic, as on the 18th of June 1928 a contract for her construction was signed, and she was going to be over 60,000 tons, and was going to be the first ship to exceed 1,000 feet, which, as I mentioned earlier, would make her the biggest ship in the world. But she was also meant to transport over 2,000 passengers when filled to maximum capacity. Unfortunately, that dream would never come to fruition. The White Star Line was eventually bought by the Royal Mail Steam Packet Company, owned by Lord Kilsant. Now, the problem with this being the fact that his massive shipping empire was riddled with debt, which would eventually lead up to problems down the line. But for now, the biggest problem to worry about is the fact that no one could agree on what the Oceanic would run on. Lord Kilsant wanted to use the diesel-electric engines to give her a service speed of 30 knots, while the White Star Line wanted to use over 40 diesel generators driving 4 propellers. But thankfully, before World War II could start over what she would run on, everyone came to a compromise. And because of this, the MV Britannic's construction could resume. As for Oceanic, she also resumed construction, but not for long, as financial issues caused by fraud begun to take its toll on Lord Kilsant's shipping empire. And to make matters worse, the crash of 29 happened during this time, bringing down the Royal Mail Steam Packet Company. Due to this, the keel of the Oceanic was coated in preservative oil, so she could later be completed. But this would never happen, and the Oceanic's keel was dismantled, ending her career before it begun, making her a dream that never came true. Not too long after, the Oceanic's keel was broken up by the White Star Line. They began to plan a sister ship for the Britannic. she was going to be called Georgic. Now this might seem irrelevant, but many of her features took inspiration from the Oceanic, including her curved superstructure at her bow. As for the MV Britannic herself, she went on to have an amazing career until the 60s, where she was scrapped. She was the last White Star Liner to be in active service, as the White Star Line and the Cunard Line merged in the 30s, but in 1949 Cunard bought out White Star, bringing an end to any trace of the third Oceanic.
The third Oceanic. It's a shame she was never built. She would have been a pretty amazing ocean liner. But let's not talk about that, as we've just had a whole video on it. I'd just like to say that the next video will be Cedric, so we'll finally get a continuation on the Big Four. And then after Cedric, we'll be getting a video on the Mauritania too, so I can't wait to work on that. You could probably tell from the length of this video, it's a short video, and my Ghosts the Queen Mary video, that is another short video, and the reason why I've decided to upload these videos so close together is because of the fact that they were both really short, but I like the idea of them. Another thing is I've tried out a few new things with this video with a different background song, as well as this I've decided to add little slides instead of just blank things with the text on, blank background with the text on. Let me know if you like that in the comment section below. Apart from that, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Goodbye.